So today's session on entrepreneurship stems from a belief that teaching entrepreneurship at school helps students become more confident, creative, and problem solvers. It is a great pleasure to have Mr. Tarun Anand as a mentor for today's session. Tarun is a versatile business leader with over 25 years of experience in leadership. He's a co-founder of Universal Business School, a premier institution providing management education to undergraduate and postgraduate students. Before founding UBS, he had worked with Thomson Reuters as chairman and managing director, Asia Pacific. Tarun is an alumnus of SP Jain Institute of Management Research. And Tarun, Mr. Anand, it's such a pleasure having you, and I'm sure the students would have immense learning from your experience. Thank you so much, and the stage is all yours.
Great. Thank you, Arun. Thank you for that kind introduction. So students, welcome, parents, and from various countries. So it's a privilege to be having this opportunity to talk to you about something I'm very passionate about, which is entrepreneurship. And I always have this, saying, I don't know how many of you, watch cricket or are fans of cricket. But if I was to ask you, would you like to learn cricket? And you have two options, right? You have the option of learning cricket from a Sachin Tendulkar or Virat Kohli, or you have the option of learning cricket from Harsha Bhogle. I think the answer should be pretty obvious that you will pick a Sachin Tendulkar and Virat Kohli because they are practitioners of the game. They've actually done it. And whereas Harsha Bhogle speaks very well, he's not actually done the game of, he's not played it, right? He's not faced every bowler, batsman in the world. So the world of learning has to be from, you should be looking at learning from people who've actually done it. And therefore, I think I can stand in front of you and give you a few of my ideas and thoughts on entrepreneurship and my some of the learnings from my journey of entrepreneurship, so that you can have some practical views of how you would go down this path. So very quickly, I grew up in Mumbai as a door-to-door salesperson, and I'll tell you a story around that a little later. And then I was a banker for many years, but I wasn't sure. I was clear, like every one of you, I'm sure, wants to have your own business, wants to do something on your own. I wasn't at that point confident. I knew I want to, but I wasn't confident to take that journey. So in my corporate life, I did what is called intrapreneurship, which is becoming an entrepreneur inside the corporation. So I came up with an idea, and I took that idea to the board of Reuters, which is a $40 billion corporation. They gave me and a few of my colleagues $90 million funding. We created an enterprise, the world's first FX exchange and so on. Let's not go into the technical side. And then that was when I realized I'm ready, because I knew I was managing Asia Pacific. I was setting up offices all over the country, all over the continent. And so then that gave me the idea, and that's when I plunged into entrepreneurship. So I'd like to just, if possible, share my screen with you to give you a few thoughts. Can you see my screen, guys? Is it a yes? Is everybody able to see the screen? Yes. Okay, great. Super. So, I'm going to tell you how I myself, the inception of being an entrepreneur. It's a fantastic journey. Firstly, it's something I would definitely recommend doing, but it's for the brave-hearted, right? It's not for the people who want to play safe. So that's the fundamental thing I'd like to say, that if you're someone who likes to play safe, then entrepreneurship is not your baby. Now, obviously, before you get into the world of entrepreneurship, you need to have an idea, right? An idea which is distinct, unique, which solves a problem. And if you're not able to get that idea, then there is no point just saying, I want to be an entrepreneur. What are you going to do? Because entrepreneurs typically fail because they have not thought through that idea. And there is a saying that, 9 out of 10 actually fail over in the first 5 years because they haven't thought through an idea. So I'm going to tell you about what I call, where is your Alaskan? So let me give you an example. There was this company in Alaska, right? Which was into cabling. They used to provide cable connections for telephones across the most distinct part of Alaska, which is on the North American continent. So they decided, let's put in $20 million and connect the various parts of the world. So they, parts of Alaska which are very far flung in the mountains where it snows consistently. So they put in $20 million, put up these poles, got these wires done, all happy, cut the ceremony, very happy that they've done something which for decades hasn't happened in the continent. 2 months later, they started getting calls from their, customers saying that there are frequent line drops. And then they say the line drops, and suddenly after a few minutes, sometimes 15 minutes, sometimes hours, the line is back. So they were like, what's happening here? This doesn't make sense. We've connected the far-flung areas. There is a drop in the connection and then it comes back. So what's happening here? So they send out a team of investigators into the far-flung areas of Alaska where they have erected their poles. And then when they were doing that, they actually saw that it snows so much. So the snow was actually forming on top of the ice or on top of the wires. And because of that, the connection was lost. And they said, okay, that we've understood that it snows and therefore this is done. How does the connection come back? The connection comes back because there are the Alaskan bears which roam around and they, with their backs, scratch themselves, their backs on these poles. So the wires get loose snow and the connection is back. So they go back to the board and say, this is the issue in Alaska, that we have this issue. So they were now psyched that what do we do? So everybody's coming up with ideas, what do we do? Do we, how do we solve this problem? So everybody came up with various ideas, but nothing was coming, hitting the spot. One lady got up and said, I have an idea. The fact that we know that the polar bears, the Alaskan polar bears, are actually shifting the poles. What if we put in some meat on these poles high up so that the Alaskan bear will go and try and claw at that meat, and then we'll get hold of, the wires will get moved and we'll have the connection back. So people are saying, what's wrong with you? Are you absolutely out of your mind? This doesn't make sense. I mean, we're not a meat company. Imagine the logistics of putting beef or meat around so many poles in the far-flung areas. We'll have to spend, logistically, it's a nightmare. But she said, she did the math and she said, it'll cost us $20,000 a month to do this. It's not that much to save our $20 million investment. We spend $20,000 per kilometer and it's still not enough. So the board said, no, this is a ridiculous idea, get lost. So the CEO said, you know what, let's just try it. It's a bizarre idea. We are a telecom company. You're telling us to get into the meats logistics space. Let's try it. Let's do it on 2 poles and see. Let's test the concept. So the board was like, this is crazy, but fine, we'll test it. So they actually put the meat in these couple of poles and they test it. Yes, the snow comes, the line breaks, the smell of the meat gets the polar bears there. They go after the meat because they can smell it and the connection is back. So not only in theory, in concept also, in actual practice, this idea works. So that was the thing. So they were like, but how can we do it? And, there was a big debate in the board. This doesn't make sense. We have to save a $20 million investment. At the same time, we imagine putting meat in so many poles. CEO said, let me go myself and check it out, right? I want to proof test this concept. So he goes, he takes a helicopter and he flies to that remote area and he's doing the survey. And then when he's going and doing the survey, he realizes that he's flying over the poles and the wires. And because of the wind of the, the copter, the snow was actually coming off and the connection was coming back. And that is what I call the aha moment. They went back to the boardroom and said, you know what, we don't need to put meat. We need to look at the weather. And when the weather says there's a snowstorm coming in a particular region, we have to fly sorties of helicopters over the length and breadth of the lines which are affected. And that will cost not more than, 10, 15,000. And it's also possible because it's only where it's affected, and we'll solve the idea. Now you see what happened. The idea germination was from meat, putting meat and getting the polar bears or the Alaskan bears to come and eat it. And suddenly, because they went through that next step of iteration, they found out that actually they don't need meat. They just need helicopters to actually do the thing. And that's what I call the concept of an idea can come from anywhere, right? I have friends who've been in a car, looked out of the window, and they were stuck in a Ganpati Visarjan. This is my closest buddy. In Mumbai, if you know, Ganpati Visarjan is a big festival where a lot of, music is done, people are dancing. So this guy was like, you know what, this is not fun, yeah, I'm stuck in traffic for 3 hours because I'm in this procession. So then he thought, what could I actually do that would make me step out into the Ganpati Visarjan and enjoy myself and say, okay, you know what, let's have fun. He said, it's the music. In Maharashtra, the typical music played is either Maharashtra folk or some Hindi music. And this friend of mine, he likes techno. He likes hardcore techno music, like doof, 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 right? So he's saying, what if I create a Ganpati Visarjan, get a DJ, world-class DJ, who's my classmate and his classmate, DJ Asad. Let's put a DJ and let's blow the music to just pure techno music on the streets of Mumbai. And he actually did that. And that grew and grew over in a decade. It became one of the biggest hits where celebrities were coming, 10,000 people who you would never have come for a Ganpati Visarjan were actually coming in for a Ganpati Visarjan. So that's what I say. The concept is that you need to make sure that the idea can come from anywhere, right? So never be afraid of ideas. You've got to figure out what is your idea. What is your Alaskan, right? So the germination of entrepreneurship is a idea which has a impact, which will have an impact. Now, let's say I've got the idea. A lot of us have great ideas, right? We need to make sure that how do we change that from an ideation process to a actual plan. This is where you have to put in a lot of work. And this is where I say, if you cannot write, and now I'm going to really raise the bar for you guys. If you cannot write 100 pages on your idea, then it's not an idea worth, you've not thought through it and you're putting money behind it. So this would mean a typical business plan. You will look at the marketing, you look at the finance, you look at the long-term growth strategy, the inherent customer value proposition, the entire business plan, right? The marketing, how you're going to grow, where it's going to be, thinking through the whole thing. Now that, if you can't write 100 pages, at least write 20 pages. But my view would be write 100 pages, because if you've written 100 pages, you've actually thought through that idea in a lot of, then the concept is, what is the impact that is doing? There is this new concept in earlier companies used to only look at one thing, which is their bottom line, right? Their profit. How much profit am I getting? And that's what business decisions are made on. The world has changed. And with the COVID arena, even more so, right? The entire fulcrum is changed. So there are three things which we call today called the triple bottom line. What is the triple bottom line? You need to look at what profit. You need to make sure that your business is sustainable, which is green. And the third thing you need to look at, what is the positive impact on the society? And if you can't put those three things together, then that's not a business worth happening, right? Because you have to see long term. You're not doing a business for 1 year. You're probably doing a business where your generations will thank you for getting them into business, right? So you've got to look at a long-term impact of your business, not 1 year, okay, fine, I have some fun. If you're building a business, you've got to think of it as a long-term. So financial sustainability is critical. Social impact and environment impact makes it the triple bottom line. So once you've got this actual, business plan, the important thing is to actually stress test your idea. And this is what we call the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. Entrepreneurship, as I said, is not easy. You need to go out there and face the music, which is the market. The marketplace is the toughest area. So how do you stress test your idea? You need to look at two things. One is at least 20 people. At least 20 people you need to go and share your idea. Now, some people say, what if someone steals my idea? My friend, ideas are cheap. It's the execution of the idea which wins and the passion behind the idea which wins. So don't worry. You can share it with your friends, people you have a great equation with, your faculty, your teachers, your extended family. Pitch the idea. Let them come and criticize you. Many people will say, nahi chalega, it won't work, it's useless, or maybe you've not thought of this, maybe you've not thought of that. They'll give you more ideas to make it. You take all that feedback, write it on a piece of paper. Just don't listen to it. Write it on a piece of paper, then put it back into your plan so that you've thought about everything, right? 20 people means 20 different perspectives. Who are your well-wishers who want you to succeed, so that you build your idea to be much more strong. Like it's like stress testing, right? So if you can do it while putting no money on it, which I call the sweat more in peace rather than bleed in war, because there in the marketplace, there are no takers, right? So you've got to make sure your idea is stress tested. Then you move to the next point of passion, because an idea without passion doesn't work, right? What do I mean by passion? I mean, never give up. You are so fanatical. And when you've written that idea and you've put in all these comments with these 20 people, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Each of you become like wedded to the idea because you're like, okay, now I know more about it. I've thought about this. I've thought about that. Then it is to test it into the marketplace. Now, remember, friends, when you go into the marketplace, lots of doors are going to slam at your face. Many people are going to say no. Hundreds of them, thousands of them. But if you're passionate, you're going to make it a success. Let me give you an example. So as I told you, friends, I started my career as a door-to-door salesperson, right? Now, I was working for a company called HSBC, Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking. And I was, ringing bells in Bombay city. Bombay is a very cosmopolitan professional city. So there's no point ringing the bell at 10 in the morning. Why? Because the husband and wife both leave for work at 7 in the morning or 7:30, or worst case 7:30, everybody's out. So if I ring the bell at 10, there's nobody there, or there is a maid help who's going to open the door. What am I going to sell? Nothing, right? So I used to start ringing bells at 6 in the morning. Now, 6 in the morning, how happy would your mother be? I saw a lot of students in the group. How happy would your mother be if at 6 in the morning I ring your doorbell? Not too happy, right? So imagine you're the mother. It's 6 in the morning. You ring the bell, ding dong, and you open the door. You're the mother. You open the door, and I'm like, "Good morning, ma'am. I'm from HSBC." God, you will slam the door on my face, right? You will get like not interested, right? It's 6 in the morning. I'm not interested. Salesmen are not allowed. Acha, before you even enter any building, many buildings used to have a board outside. I'm sure you can guess what it was. Can I have some guesses? What was written outside many buildings? Salesmen aren't allowed, I think you're thinking. Yes, it was actually dogs and salesmen aren't allowed. So you're at the level of a dog, right? You walk in, you start ringing doorbells after doorbell, and the door keeps slamming on your face. It's very depressing. It's very upsetting, right? Nobody wants to even listen to you. Nobody was giving me 2 seconds to listen to my pitch. How do I deliver? How do I actually get anything sold if not even one person is going to listen to me, leave alone hear me? So I was depressed. I went up to the terrace. I used to think, how do I get back? If I go to work, my boss is going to fire me because I've got 0 sales. If I come here, nobody's allowing me to even enter their houses. So I came up with an idea. Can I tell you that idea? If today I promise you don't go and tell your mothers this idea, I'm joking. But so it's 6 in the morning. I'm giving you the scenario, right? I would ring the doorbell. The door would open. I would love to show it to you physically, but we are in this new world, so I have to do it on this Zoom call. I would say, good morning, ma'am, I'm from HSBC. And now I know what's going to happen. The door is going to slam on my face, right? The door is going to slam. So the door is about to slam, and I would take a big leap and put my foot inside the door, right? Now the mother would actually get irritated and slam the door, sometimes hard, sometimes small, and it would hit my leg. And I would go flying, thud, 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 falling in the floor and going, and the mother would open the door and say, what happened? And she'll see me fallen on the floor. And I'm like, ma'am, I think I've hurt myself. I think Now all mothers are beautiful people, right? They have a beautiful heart. So she's feeling very upset. And why is this young boy fallen on my doorstep? Ma'am, I think I've hurt myself. Can I just have a painkiller? Now she's given me hurt, so she's feeling possibly guilty. So she goes in and gets a glass of water and a painkiller. Painkiller, water, painkiller, water. I'm about to have the painkiller, and I stop and say, ma'am, I've just forgotten I did not have any breakfast today morning. And she's like now looking at me, and I'm like, no, I'm not asking for a double cheese omelette with French fries and toast, right? All I'm asking is for a cup of tea, because every mother knows, your mothers know this, that you cannot eat a painkiller without, on an empty stomach, right? So she's committed to this kind act. She has to follow through. She gets a painkiller, brings me into the house, 5-7 minutes to make a cup of tea, 5-7 minutes to drink that tea. I got 15 minutes bonus. What happened? Sales done, right? Because nobody was even listening to me. Suddenly I get 15 minutes. I would make my pitch, close the door. Next, I was Ghanti Fall Painkiller Chai Sale, Ghanti Fall Painkiller Chai Sale, Ghanti Fall Painkiller Chai Sale. One shot, sometimes 6 painkillers. Now, why am I telling you this story? In life, there are going to be many doors that's going to bang in your face. Many doors. It could be the door of a dream business school that you want to join. It could be the door of a dream career, a dream job, or like you guys want to learn entrepreneurship. You're going to get many doors slammed on your face. Get used to it. Now, the important thing is either find a way through the door, like I did, or there is always another door. There's always another option. The hallmark of entrepreneurs is resilience. What is the word? Resilience. The ability to bounce back. And if you don't have that ability to bounce back, you're not going to make it in the entrepreneur world. It's like a sports, right? When you play a game of cricket or football, and I used to represent India in rugby. That's why I have the picture of rugby here. I've played rugby for India. You get that tackle, you get back up, you lose a match, you wake up, you say, okay, you know what? I'm going to try harder. I'm going to come back. I'm going to figure out whether my bowling is required, improves, my fielding requires, my batting technique requires, or if I'm in football, whether my passing accuracy or my goal scoring accuracy, all of these things you would analyze, right? And you would come back and play. You never say that if I lose a match of tennis or badminton, I'm not going to play. You go back. That's what life is. It's about a sport, right? And a sport is you get back into the game. That's the life of an entrepreneur. One door shuts, there's another door, right? There's always another door. So if you're not able to have that passion for your idea, that's saying, okay, White, no problem. I'll try again. I'll try again. And obviously, if there is some learnings in that, you kind of move it back into the proposition and keep improving and improving, right? Now, most important thing, passion, great, idea, great, risk. The core of an entrepreneur is building your risk muscle, right? Not your biceps. I'm talking of your risk muscle. Fear, right? The reason why do you think people don't take risks? Why don't you think people take risks? I don't mind if someone would like to tell me. I think I gave away the answer. I think you know the answer. I think you would be thinking about it. It's fear of failure, right? People don't take risks because they say, what if I fail? And if you're an Indian, we have Indian large families in India who are always wondering, oh my God, he's failed, she's failed. And the whole big Indian family will start commenting on it. My God, what has he done? What has she done? So that's why we don't like failure. We tend to avoid things because we don't want to fail or be seen as a failure. Now, friends, I'll tell you one of the biggest secrets why I'm standing in front of you telling you the story of entrepreneurship is, and I had the opportunity to run a $2 billion business spread over 136 countries, right? I was running a $2 billion, and I was just 32 years of age. At 33 years of age, I was promoted to the board of a $40 billion corporation. Suddenly I'm in a board meeting, right? Why did that happen? At 35 years of age, I became the youngest managing director, which you heard earlier. Why is it? Simple. I have taken 1,000,000 risks in my life and failed 1,000,000 times. Wait a minute. Just now you just told us you were on the board of this. I worked in Hong Kong. I worked in London. I've worked in New York. You just said you worked in all these places. You've had this successful corporate career, but you're saying you're a failure. How does this two work? Either you're a super duper success or you're a super duper failure. How can you be both? The answer, my friends, is I risk, I fail, I learn, right? The person who doesn't take risks is a person who's never going to fail and never going to learn. Am I right? If you don't take risks, you're not going to fail, you're not going to learn. And if you have to come into this VUCA world, right now, post-COVID, it's all VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. The world is becoming nuts. If you have to navigate this VUCA world, the only way to navigate this VUCA world is by taking more risks, not less, by taking more risks. Heard me? You need to make fear a skill. You need to make failure. It should excite you. Wow, I failed. Yes. The more you fail, the more closer you're going to get into success. So fear has to become a skill. Nobody's taught you in anywhere, no business school will teach you that fear has to become a skill. I want to acquire the skill of actually failure. Failure should excite me, right? Let me give you an example. Let's say we walk out into a beautiful garden, right? Lovely trees, beautiful lawns, nice plants and flowers. And while you're walking, into this beautiful park or garden, I tell you guys, before you entered this garden, I have planted 100 poisonous cobras in the grass. You know what will happen to each one of you? You'll go like, oof, what just happened? You've been told that there are 100 cobras in the poisonous cobras. If you were walking normally, suddenly you hear this new information, which builds fear into your mind. Oh my God, you will start seeing things you didn't see before. You will start hearing things you didn't hear. Your faculties would have expanded. What has just happened? You've transformed. Risk came into the equation. I added risk. You are expanding your faculties. And that's the beauty of risk. You start stretching yourself. You start knowing your limits. If you're not willing to take risks, you're not going to know your limits. And then how are you going to succeed? So the only way to learn is by taking more risks, stretching yourselves and stretching your abilities, right? So therefore, one of the most important things, and if there's one thing I would like you to take home from this presentation, is that if I want to be an entrepreneur, I need to up my risk appetite, right? I cannot be, oh, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. You have to go all out. You have to stretch yourself. You have to throw yourself. You have to get off and jump off a cliff. That's what entrepreneurship is. You need to be able to prepare to do that. And many people would tell me, you know what? I want to do entrepreneurship, but I want a backup plan. I'm sorry, friends. For me, when I got into entrepreneurship, it was all in. If you guys know this game called poker, it's put all the chips in, because there is failure is going to happen, but you're going to keep learning, getting better, better, better. And the big pie of success comes to those who are building their risk muscle, right? Now, you've got to the idea, you've stress tested the idea, you've actually gone to the process of putting passion behind your ideas, you've willing to commit risk capital to the idea. Now comes the next step, which is action, right? Execution. I'm going to tell you a very quick story. So I was in London. My boss was a Britisher called, Mark Robson. We had to build a strategic decision to acquire a $25 million company in Germany, Frankfurt, Germany. So we were a bunch of colleagues from England, from France, America, China, Japan, all of us part of the global strategic management team. And my boss said, before we buy this company, we need to do what's called due diligence, right? Due diligence is the process of deciding whether we should buy or not buy the company. So it's a detailed exercise. So my boss said, who will do the due diligence? My good friends, Heiko Cassens from Germany, he put up his hand and said, sir, I'm from Germany. I understand German markets. I'd like to do the due diligence. Okay, Heiko, go ahead, do the due diligence. How long will you take? Heiko said, sir, 2 months. Okay, fine. My good friend, Michael McCorkle from America. Michael, as you know, is an American. Americans always like to get under the skin of the Germans since World War II, right? So Michael said, I'd like to do the due diligence. How long will you take, Mikey? Mike from New York said, I'll take 1 month. Now the German is obviously upset. He said 2 months. Michael said 1 month. So they start arguing, no, we need to do this kind of analysis, this detail. Mike is not fast. We need to move fast. Heiko, so they are arguing. I put up my hand. Now, my name is Tarun Anand, but I was called Tarun. They used to call me Tarun in London. And when I moved to New York, they called me Tarun. And when I moved to Hong Kong, I can't tell you. The Chinese rogered my name. So Tarun, what do you say? I said, Mark, I'd like to do the due diligence. How long will you take, Tarun? I said 2 weeks. So the German and American who were, arguing with each other, suddenly look at this Indian Sardar and say, what? They started pouncing on me. You don't know anything. You've come from India. You have no experience in German markets. You've not done any acquisition in Europe. Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, okay. My boss intervened and said, no, let Tarun do it. Great. That very day, I flew to Frankfurt because I had 2 weeks, 14 days. You know what? When I landed on Frankfurt Airport, friends, what was the first thought that came to my mind? I have never done due diligence in my life. Right? So this was crazy. My back to the wall. I had to work like I've never worked. 14 days later, I gave the report to my boss. He was looking at it. He found some errors, but not. He said, wow, you cracked it. So I was on top of the world. I forgot about this. 6 months later, I get a call from my boss. My boss called me, saying, come to New York for dinner. So I flew that very day, took a flight from Heathrow to John F. Kennedy, showered, got ready, was at the dinner. My boss opens a bottle of Dom Perignon champagne and he says, congratulations, Tarun, you're the new global CEO of the treasury business. I was like, wow, I was just 32 years. I was blown. And I asked him, why? Why me? Because remember all the other guys, my colleagues from America, Germany, France, Japan, all of them, they were minimum 10 to 15 years older than me. Also, friends, they were from Harvard, Wharton, Stanford, Oxford, Cambridge, the best universities in the world. I was from SPGen. Nobody had heard of SPGen in London or New York. So why was I given the CEO position? So I asked my boss, why me? And my boss just said, one reason, you know how to smash the deadline. And I was like, wow, right? Because I still didn't understand. I said, what do you mean? He said, if that due diligence meeting, you hadn't put up your hand for a 2 weeks due diligence, we would have lost a $20 million asset. That's what it requires to work hard, burn the midnight oil, smash the deadline. That's what we call execution. And that's why you are going to be the global CEO. So how the life entirely changes and you're thrust into things. So one of the things I want you to come and learn is execution. And finally, and this is my last slide, stay the course, right? Many people are going to come and tell you, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. You need to be consistently executing. And most important thing in entrepreneurship is get a team, right? Get a team. You need to have a team. And whoever you hire, if you have a co-founder, great. If you don't have, hire people smarter than you. If you can hire people smarter than you, you are going to work. Many times you're the boss, you say, I'll hire people so that I can control them and all. Don't make that mistake. You will realize that if you hire someone smarter than you, your business will take off, right? Your business is there to take off. So, and keep your eyes on cash flow. That's the last point I'd make. Businesses fail because they can't see cash flow. Cash flow is how much liquidity I have, not profit. Many businesses will say, I'm making a lot of profit. Yes, you're making profit, but you don't have cash in the bank. And if you don't have cash in the bank, you can't pay salaries. And that's why you go bankrupt. companies go bankrupt because of cash flow, not profitability. You can have 10 crores of profitability and zero cash and go bankrupt, right? Bankruptcy is because you don't have cash to pay your liabilities to the extent to the bankers and so on. So make sure cash is king. In the entrepreneurship world, cash is king. So that's all I wanted to leave you with, some thoughts and some ideas, and happy to take any question and answers which you would have.
Wow. Inspiring. You know, that's what my and a couple of other people on the group. Yeah, thank you so much, Anand. So we're moving to the open session, open house. You can raise your hands if you have a question, right? And
so guys, while
yeah.
you're raising question, just want to tell you where I am sitting right now. That's in my business school. I'm sitting right there below the dome. So over to you guys.
Lovely. Okay, so you have a question, raise your hand and I'll pass on the speaking rights to you. Starting with Mohammed. Mohammed, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Sir, can you hear me?
Yes.
And I just want to ask you one thing. These entrepreneurship lessons, all these can we teach in a normal school?
Yes, absolutely. This is, of course, many schools in India, around the world, are actually teaching these. The important thing about teaching is actually allowing the students to practice, right? So what we do at our business school is we actually have a fund where we allocate resources, and students come with ideas. They actually make their business plans, they pitch it, some make money, they lose. So that's when the real learning happens, when you actually do what we call experiential learning, doing. So even if you say, you know what, here's 5,000 rupees, right?
Yes.
Let's see you make money out of it. Small money, but give them a taste of it, because learning without the doing angle is tough. But nowadays you can even have simulations. So you can learn through simulations, which allows you to say, if I put the money in these areas, this is my marketing mix, how would the product do in the marketplace? And then the marketplace is a dynamic marketplace. So it tells you whether, that business would be successful or not.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Yeah.
So there are a couple of questions in the Q&A section. One of them is the first step you would suggest to take if I'm an 18-year-old aspiring entrepreneur.
As I said, the idea is the starting point. So anything which you think is not right, or something which can be improved in your experience is what you would not jot down in your, call it your entrepreneurship book. So anything that you think is not right, then there could be a structural reason or a product or a service that can make it right or make it better, right? So as I said, it all starts with what is the problem which you are experiencing, or if you are exposing yourself to various areas or whatever exposures you get, that's the starting point, because without that, without an idea, there is no entrepreneurship.
Just hold on, Anup, I'll come back to you. There's a question, an interesting, why to keep a smart co-founder?
Why to keep? So, I think the important thing is it's a lonely journey. It's a very lonely journey. And you've put in a lot of money, possibly. And if you have someone you can bounce off who's put in, similar financial resources, emotional and time, it's always good. And it's like 2 and 2 might give you a 4, because when you're alone, you're making some decisions. And if you can bounce it off someone who's equally invested, it helps. So some of the biggest companies in the world, whether it's Google or it's Infosys, they've all been started by a bunch of people, and everybody comes with unique sets. Now, of course, if you are one of those people who has it all, then you don't need one, right? It's not like a mandatory thing. You can actually hire people, and don't get them at founders. Get smart people, pay them, well, or incentivize them through what they call stock options, and get them on board, and don't give them equity or a stake. So that's also possible.
This is a question from a parent, I presume. How do I support my child for his idea?
So I think, the one thing I always say is, idea is one thing. There's a structure to building a plan, right? Businesses make mistakes. We all know that. Why make stupid mistakes? Why should a business make a silly mistake? They should make mistakes in the marketplace. It's tough, but many mistakes can be avoided by a high quality education process. So enroll your child in a business school anywhere in the world which has got entrepreneurship. Let them at least learn by getting the basics right. You don't mess up on cash flows. You don't mess up not knowing what a profit and loss is versus a balance sheet. What is an asset versus people put in investment in as expenses. So let's not make stupid mistakes. So get them a good quality education, so they are now better prepared. They'll continue to make mistakes, let them, because as I said, if they don't make mistakes in the marketplace, they won't learn, they won't grow, they won't have successful businesses. So be supportive.
I would have expected this question. Is getting a degree necessary to start?
Not at all. See, our friends Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg don't have degrees. They've built multi-billion-dollar valuations, right? But now my question is there. Are you a Bill Gates or are you a Mark Zuckerberg? For the millions who have made those money, these two, or there might be a few more, who will be sitting in this bracket of not requiring a degree. The rest have it. So I would say, if you believe you have the money, you have the idea, and you have the power to organize yourself, you don't need a degree. I believe that my degree really helped me to become a successful entrepreneur, right? So I think there's no right or wrong answer. It's you looking into the mirror. If you're confident, you know business, you feel like you're a natural businessman, off you go.
I'll pass on the speaking rights to Anu, and then take a few questions after that. Please unmute and start, Anu. You can ask a question.
Yeah, Jai Hind, everyone.
Hi.
Being a school leader, now my interest is if Mr. Tarun, if your organization has some tie-up with the schools wherein you can, suggest a few projects for our children, wherein these students, they can take those innovative projects and learn more about entrepreneurship. Do you have such tie-ups, or do you support schools in these things?
So sure, we do in various elements, and we are open to the idea. So we can look at creating a model where we can support. Happy to
so
do that.
if we could have a channel wherein we can connect with you, or maybe some other...
Just drop me an email and
you
introduce you to Mr. Anand, sir. Will that be okay with you?
Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Thank you so much.
The invite usually comes in from my email ID. Just drop me an email and I'll connect the two of you.
Thank you so much. That will be great. Thank you so much.
Thankful to Mr. Mohanty, who's been kind and with his appreciation. He's written quite, very inspiring message on the chat window. Coming back and so there are a set of questions which are coming in, Tarun, which is around work, entrepreneurship, or start. Work, gain experience, and then do, or start. What's the right mode?
Again, it all boils down. Again, if you followed my presentation, it all boils down to starting with an idea, right? If I had an idea and I had also the financial resources at the early part of my career, probably I would have done it. I didn't have an idea. I wanted experience. I wanted to be. And then the only time when I took the plunge, And I took a serious plunge, right? I'm talking of committing $10 million because I had the capital and I decided that I'm ready for it. I can now face the music. So I don't think there's anything right or wrong. It all boils down to the power of the idea, your due diligence in terms of establishing it, feeling confident about it. And if you have all of those things, then get off to the races. If you're feeling not 100% sure, the fact that you're asking the question, to me, that itself means that there is a, I'm not yet sure, am I ready for it? Then I would say get more ready. You will get ready. You start going in that direction. It might happen a year later, it might happen 3 years later, right? So there's no right or wrong. But clearly the risk appetite, normally people have a higher risk appetite at the early stage. And so I would encourage at an early stage to get into this. I got in at a later stage. I got in when I was 35 years. I got into entrepreneurship at 35 years. Entrepreneurship, I got in at 32.
So there's a young learner in this room who's asking, which is the best stream to take for being an entrepreneur?
So I would say business, because entrepreneurship is about establishing a business. So you must take business as your area of education. So you understand the basics of business, marketing, finance, accounting, operations, human resources. So you understand, what that is all about. So definitely business. Unless you want to, if let's say you're interested in engineering, because you want to build a product, then it's fine. Then go into engineering, build a product, and then do a business degree. If education is what you're looking, but some element of business is helpful.
There are a couple of students who are keen to understand in your journey, right? If there have been some mistakes and you wish you could have avoided it. So more from an experiential sharing that they're asking.
No, so as I call it, I go back to, I risk, I fail, I learn. Every failure, I don't want to avoid it because it wouldn't get me where I am. So there is no failure. I love my failures. I'm thankful I have my failures. In fact, I get excited because for me, you risk, if you take a risk and it wins, wow. If you fail, you're learning, it's a wow. So it's a wow. There's no taking risks I would call taking risks as a zero loss option. Now people will say you're crazy, but for me, if I take a risk and it works out, great, win-win. If I take a risk, I fail and then I learn, it's a win-win. So taking risks is a inherent part. So there's no failure I'm not happy with. There is one failure where we lost a large amount for our company, and that's because of the 2008 financial crisis where we had to fire all our staff. I had to go from country to country just firing staff. So that was tough, and that builds a lot of character. But that's part of the game, right? You win some, you can't nobody can forecast the financial crisis. Nobody could have forecast the COVID virus, right? So there are big companies like J.Crew, Brooks Brothers, defaulting and going into bankruptcies in the US. So these are things part of business. In fact, it allows you to know that how much risk planning, risk mitigation, business continuity planning is got to be part of your overall business plan, which I said in the initial phases you have to have.
It's a very, I think I'll consider it as a very smart question. Somebody's trying to understand how to get knowledge of market.
Knowledge of market. So I think, the critical thing is to either be a consumer yourself. So you've experienced that particular service or product. And otherwise you got to spend a lot of time understanding the market. In fact, ideas are won and lost in the marketplace, and therefore, of course, large companies, they do a lot of research. They do so many field studies. They do research after research after research of consumer needs, of consumer demands, of unmet needs, and they keep going through that as a marketeer. And so marketing teaches you some of that, where you understand how do you interpret the market. And then once you interpret the market, then how do you get the positioning right? And then how do you create a brand, which is what will give you the big bucks in the long term.
Sahil wants to understand if one can become an entrepreneur without money.
Yes, there are cases where you can become an entrepreneur. Again, a powerful idea with funding. They call it the crowdfunding. So there are many websites where you can actually put in your idea and people love it. They'll put money behind that idea and take a stake of your idea. So that's there. Obviously, the other extreme to that is where you go to private equity, and before that you go to venture capital, where venture capital loves the idea. They'll fund you. They'll say, okay, here's a token stake. We fund your idea. So that's also possible. You don't need to have money.
I will pass on the speaking rights as one more, and then last two questions after this one, if you're okay with it.
Sure.
Yeah, please go ahead. Mohammed Fatima, yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir.
Please.
Can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sir, I'm basically a feminist writer, and I have published many materials, many papers I have published. And I want to know that being an women, the women entrepreneurship, I'm very much interested in this line. Is there any book have you published regarding this, sir, for our guidance?
No, I haven't published any book, but there are enough books on this subject. I can tell you, and women have showcased that they are much more, they're amazing entrepreneurs because of the kind of challenges they can manage the family as well as the business. So there's a lot of good material. I'm sorry, I haven't published anything on that area.
Okay. So Selvraj wants to understand the difference between risk and calculated risk on the business model. That's his complete question.
So great. I think, there's always going to be, so what I call a 50-50, right? You toss a coin. To me, that's risk. It could go either way, right? When you're taking a business decision, you say, let's put a coin and flip it and see, heads I go this way, tails I go the other way. So that's I call a risk. I would say calculated risk would be something where you do enough research, improve the odds to around 70%, right? So that's where I say, but don't go beyond 70% because there's nothing called 100%. Otherwise, it's no risk, right? It's a guarantee. 100% means guarantee. So it's that 30% which I would say is the area. And for some people, they have a less risk threshold or a risk appetite. They would like to be 80% sure. But I think there's no concept in business called 80%. It's between 65 and 70. You get your odds up to that and then you do it. And, it will fail. And that's where the aspect that it is a risk or it will succeed. So I think that's where I would put pure risk as 50%. And 70% is calculated risk. So, in business, what you do is you put in what outcomes you possibly will have with taking various, it's called the decision theory matrix, where you put in weightages of probabilities, and that actually drives you into your decision at the end of it. So it's the decision tree, basically, which you put up.
I'll keep this as a last question for the day. I'm afraid no. Don't. Okay, so this is. So a couple of people have asked this question. How do you manage to stay motivated?
Okay. Okay. So, I think it's, there are two broad concepts. One is motivated generally in life, and one is motivated in the entrepreneurship world. So as an entrepreneur, I think there are two things which happen. One is your passion for that idea, that you're trying to do something which is unique, which has not been done, and you want to bring a change in that area. So that's one area. And the second area is, as you build the enterprise, you have people who work for you. And so you start becoming responsible, because you're responsible for their livelihoods and their families' livelihoods and well-being. So I think that becomes a powerful motivator in the entrepreneurial world, that you want to keep growing, so that you want to give people a better livelihood. And did you notice I didn't say profit in this? Because to me, profit is an outcome, right? Profit is not the motivation. And that's me. I'm sure there are other businessmen who say only profit and only profit motivates them and nothing else. I'm slightly different. Now, general life motivation, I would say, is it's about knowing yourself firstly, and understanding what are your things which make you, each one has their own internal DNA. Someone reads a book on Elon Musk and becomes like, wow, I want to conquer the world. Some people, get setback very easily. You get a setback, you start becoming miserable and unhappy and demotivated, as they call it. So I think that's where I would say, when that happens, you got to find, like for me, it's very simple. As I said, I have made 1 million mistakes, and that means financial losses and all kinds of mistakes for my company, for myself personally. How do I motivate myself? I go onto the tennis court. I love playing tennis, hit a few sets. And then when I'm doing that, my entire focus is on tennis and getting that serve in the right corner, or the balls in a particular corner. So I distract myself and go into my passion. So whether it for you might be music, it could be arts, it could be sports. Distract yourself so that the pain, the initial pain comes down, and then over time you just say, I'm having fun. When I'm in the worst moment of my life, I use the phrase, I'm having fun. And I've noticed that that has worked for me, because then I start smiling and saying, what's fun about this? It's such a horrible situation. And then I laugh, and then I figure out a way to get out of it. So everybody has their own mental way of dealing with it.
I am sorry, we'll probably need to close this session today. So there are two ways we can respond. Mr. Anand, if you are okay, I can share the email ID.
Yes, please.
Or, with all the attendees of today's session. So I'll drop you an email ID, or if you can just, if you can type it in the chat window.
Let me see, where's the
chat?
Okay, got it.
And Garvit, Pranjal, all of you can actually, Meher, you can write to Mr. Anand directly. So it's tarun@ubs.org.in. It's there in the chat window. My apologies, I will not be able to, because this is going to continue for as long as, So thank you so much for being here today. I'm sure kids have enjoyed it. Not everyone is necessarily looking at entrepreneurship, although it's quite something that kids look at, right? Thank you so much. I think it helps, it inspires, it gives reasonable insight to the young ones to understand and put their thoughts clearly. Thank you so much. And with this, I will close the session. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.